Chapter 19. Jacob drove us to a large flat building where several people were gathered in a circle. I could feel the tension in them as we pulled up. Jacob came around and petted me but left me in the truck. "Good dog, Ellie," he said absently. I sat and watched him anxiously as he approached the group of people. Several of them spoke at once. "We didn't notice her missing until lunch, but we don't have any idea how long she's been gone. Marilyn's an Alzheimer's patient. I don't understand how she got away with no one seeing." While I sat there, a squirrel climbed down the trunk of a tree and busied itself foraging for food in the grass. I stared at it, astounded at its audacious disregard for the fact that I, a vicious predator, was a mere 10 feet away. Jacob came to the cage and opened the door. "Heel," he commanded, giving me no chance to catch the squirrel. I snapped to it. Time to work. Jacob led me away from the people to a corner of the front yard of the building. He held out 2 shirts that smelled reminiscent of Grandma a little. I stuck my nose into the soft cloth, inhaling deeply. "Ellie, find." I took off, running past the knot of people. "She wouldn't have gone that way," someone said. "Let Ellie work," Jacob replied. Work. I carried the sense of memory of the clothing in my mind as I held my nose up to the air, coursing back and forth as I'd been trained. There were a lot of people smells, dog smells, car smells, but I couldn't find. Frustrated, I turned back to Jacob. He read my disappointment. "That's okay, Ellie. Find." He began walking down the street, and I leaped ahead, cruising up and down the yards. I turned the corner and slowed down. There it was, tantalizing, coming to me. I zeroed in on it and raced ahead. 40 feet in front of me, lying at the base of some bushes, her scent was clear. I turned and ran back to Jacob, who had been joined by several police officers. "Show me, Ellie." I took him back to the bushes. He bent, poking at something with a stick. "What is it?" one of the officers asked, coming up behind Jacob. "A tissue. Good dog, Ellie, good dog." He grabbed me and wrestled with me briefly, but I sensed there was more work. "How do we know that's hers? Could have been dropped by anybody," one of the policemen objected. Jacob bent down, ignoring the men behind him. "Okay, Ellie, find." I could follow her scent, now faint but traceable. It went ahead 2 blocks, then turned right, getting stronger. At a driveway, it made an abrupt right, and I tracked her through an open gate to where she was sitting on a swing set, moving gently. There was a real sense of happiness flowing from her, and she seemed glad to see me. "Hello, doggie," she said. I ran back to Jacob, and I could tell from his excitement that he knew I'd found her before I got up to him, though he waited for me to reach him before he reacted. "Okay, show me," he urged. I took him to the lady on the swing set. I felt Jacob's relief when he saw the woman. "Are you Marilyn?" he asked gently. She cocked her head at him. "Are you Warner?" she replied. Jacob spoke into the microphone on his shoulder, and soon we were joined by the other policemen. Jacob took me aside. "Good dog, Ellie." He pulled out a rubber ring and sent it bouncing across the lawn, and I jumped on it and brought it back, holding it out for him to grip and tug on. We played for about 5 minutes, my tail whipping the air. As Jacob shut me in the cage on the back of the truck, I could feel the pride coming off of him. "Good dog, Ellie. You are such a good dog." It was, I reflected, as close as Jacob could come to the unrestrained adoration I once felt from Ethan, and from it I realized that today I truly understood my purpose as Ellie, not just to find people, but to save them. The worry that poured off the knot of people in front of the building could not have been more clear, just as the relief when we returned was clear. The lady had been in some sort of danger, and by finding her, Jacob and I saved her from the danger. That is what we did together. That was our work, and that's what he cared about most. It was like the game I played with Ethan, rescue. The next day, Jacob took me to a store and purchased some fragrant flowers, which we left in the truck while we did some work. Wally was hiding on top of a strong-smelling trash dumpster, but he couldn't fool me. Then Jacob and I went for a long car ride, so long that I became tired of holding my nose up to the side of the cage and lay down on the floor. When Jacob came to let me out, there was a heaviness in him. Whatever was always hurting him inside seemed stronger than ever. We were in a big yard filled with stones. Subdued, not sure what we were doing, I stayed next to Jacob as he walked a few dozen yards carrying his flowers. He knelt and put the flowers down next to one of the stones, the pain twisting in him so deeply that tears fell silently down his cheeks. I nuzzled his hand, concerned. "It's okay, Ellie. Good dog. Sit." I sat, grieving with Jacob. He cleared his throat. "I miss you so much, honey. Sometimes I don't think I can get through the day knowing you're not going to be there when I get home," he whispered hoarsely. I lifted my ears at the word home. Yes, I thought, let's go home. Let's leave this sad place. I'm on K-9 patrol now. Search and rescue. They don't want me on regular patrol because I'm still taking antidepressants. I've got a dog. Her name is Ellie, a 1-year-old German Shepherd. I wagged my tail. We just got certified, so we'll be going out now. I'll be glad to get off the desk. I've gained about 10 pounds from all of the Sitting, Jacob laughed, and the sound of it was so peculiar, such a sad, tortured laugh with no happiness in it at all. We remained there nearly motionless for about 10 minutes, and gradually the feeling from Jacob shifted, became less raw and more like what I felt when Ethan and Hannah would say goodbye at the end of the summer. Something similar to fear. "I love you," Jacob whispered. Then he turned and walked away. From that day forward, we spent a lot more time away from the kennel. Sometimes we would ride on airplanes or helicopters, both of which vibrated so much they made me sleepy despite the noise. "You're a chopper dog, Ellie," Jacob told me whenever we rode on the helicopters. One day, we even went to the biggest pond I'd ever seen, a huge expanse of water full of exotic smells, and I tracked a little girl down the sand to a playground full of children, who all called to me when I approached. "Want to play in the ocean, Ellie?" Jacob asked me after I showed him the little girl, and a mother and father took her away for a car ride. We went to the pond, and I splashed and ran in the water, which was very salty when the spray came into my nose. "This is the ocean, Ellie, the ocean," Jacob laughed. Playing in the ocean, I felt the thing that had such a tight clench in his heart loosen just a little. Running through the shallow water reminded me of chasing Ethan on his sled. I had to lunge upward to make any progress, exactly the same gait I'd used in the snow. It made me realize that though the sun's cycle suggested a couple of years had passed, there was never any snow here. It didn't bother the children, though. They had sleds they rode on the waves. I stood and watched them play, knowing Jacob would not want me to chase them. One boy looked something like Ethan when he was younger, and I marveled that I could remember my boy when he was little and also when he was a man. An ache overtook me then, a sharp stab of sadness that didn't go away until Jacob whistled me back to his side. When I did go to the kennel, Cammy was often there, but Gypsy almost never was. On one such day, I was trying to interest Cammy in a glorious game of I've got the ball when Jacob came out to get me. "Ellie," he called. I'd never heard such urgency in his voice. We drove very fast, the tires making screeches as we turned corners that I could hear above the wail of the siren. I lay down on the floor of my cage to keep from sliding around. As usual, when we arrived at the place to work, there were a lot of people standing around. One of them, a woman, was so afraid she couldn't stand up, and 2 people were holding her. The anxiety rippling off Jacob as he ran past me to talk to these people was so strong it made the fur on my back stand up. It was a parking lot, big glass doors in a building swinging open for people carrying small bags. The woman who had collapsed reached into her bag and pulled out a toy. "We've got them all locked down," someone said. Jacob came to my door and opened it. He handed me a toy to sniff. "Ellie, okay? Got it? I need you to find Ellie." I leaped out of the truck and tried to sort through all the smells, to find one that matched the toy. I was concentrating so hard I didn't notice that I'd trotted out in front of a moving car, which rocked when the driver hit the brakes. Okay, I had it. There was a scent that was oddly married to another, a strong male scent. I tracked them both, sure of myself. The smell vanished at a car, rather, next to the car, telling me that the people we were working had driven away in a different vehicle and this one had pulled in to take its place. I alerted Jacob, cringing at his sense of frustration and disappointment. "Okay, good girl, Ellie, good girl." His play was perfunctory, though, and I felt like a bad dog. "We've tracked her to here. It looks like she's got into a vehicle and left. Do we have surveillance on the parking lot? We're checking now." "If it is who we think it is, though, the car's stolen," a man wearing a suit told Jacob. "Where would he take her? If it's him, where would he go?" Jacob asked. The man in the suit turned his head, squinting at the green hills behind us. "The last 2 bodies we found were up in Topanga Canyon. The first one was in Will Rogers State Park. We'll head up that way," Jacob said. "See if we can pick up anything."